Hello, bookish friends. Since one of the prompts in Jane Austen July has always been read a non-fiction book about Jane Austen, I thought I could try a chapter video which I listened to for non-fiction books about Jane Austen in my Storytel application and decide which book to read for Jane Austen July next month. First book that I'm going to try was the most interesting title that I have encountered actually, Jane Austen Game Theorist. This book was written by Michael Suk-Young Chwe, and I will listen to the first chapter of the book. This is the cover of the book. I just realized that this book was actually an e-book, so I will read the first chapter. I finished the first chapter of Jane Austen Game Theorist. This chapter was like an introduction to a work of research. I felt like I was reading the first chapter of a master thesis. The author argues that game theory comes with understanding other people's behavior and understanding their situations, and then act accordingly to gain some sort of advantage or bring out the desired results. He says that Jane Austen does that very well in her 6 novels, and gives some sort of examples from all of her novels. Connection between game theory and being a clever person who does strategic thinking is an interesting subject matter. On the other hand, I do not think that Jane Austen is the exception for having characters with the strategic thinking. I might read this book in the future because, as you know, I'm obsessed with Jane Austen novels. On the other hand, I do not think that I will choose this book for Jane Austen July because, as I've said before, I couldn't find its significance with Jane Austen at all. The second book that I'm going to try the first chapter of is Jane Austen Diet by Bryan Kozlowski. I will listen to the first chapter of this book. This first chapter has about 15 minutes of time. I will listen to it and come back to give my thoughts about the first chapter. I like the first chapter of Jane Austen Diet very much. It felt much more connected to Jane Austen's work and Jane Austen's train of thought than the first book that I tried to read the first chapter of. This book is actually about a lifestyle, not a diet, but most for commercial reasons. I think he gave the title of a diet. And how healthy living is advised very much in Jane Austen's characters who succeed their other aims, and also their beloved characters. It was very interesting, and I will certainly read this book in the future, and I admit I did not expect to like the first chapter of this book as much as I did, so it's a very pleasant surprise for me. Now I'm going to listen to the first chapter of the book that I'm most excited to read actually, Jane Austen at Home by Worsley. The first chapter of this book has 12 minutes of listening time. I really love the cover, so let's see what will happen. I listened to the first chapter of Jane Austen at Home. It was very interesting, and the epilogue and the introduction was narrated by the author, and she narrated it with such a big passion. It's very clear how Worsley loves Jane Austen. According to the author, the book is about real Jane Austen, her home life, and her views about her position in the society, taken from her letters and her correspondence to many people. It is a book that I certainly will consider choosing for Jane Austen July. Last book that I will try a chapter of is The Genius of Jane Austen by Paula Bryan. This book has a title, Her Love of Theater and Why She is a Hit in Hollywood. Being a fan of book adaptations, I'm very curious how her genius is analyzed in this book. This book also has a very short introduction part, which is about 12 minutes. The cover is also very appealing. A woman dressed in Regency style, but using modern technology. I think it fits the theme of the book well. I read the first chapter of The Genius of Jane Austen. Introduction part was interesting, like the other books. Some examples from her work are given. First of all, because of Mansfield Park, the idea that Jane Austen does not approve of theatrical works is wrong according to the author, because she gives many examples of her love for theater, both from her letters and from some of her other works. First part of the book give more examples like this. And the second part of the book, as mentioned in the introduction, why her works are adapted very, very successfully to screen, and how her characters are very dramatic characters, which would also suit theater. I found the book interesting, as I've said before, and I will certainly read it when I want to read a book about Jane Austen. On the other hand, I have to say I did not find this book as interesting as Jane Austen Diet or Jane Austen at Home, but it seems like a really good book, but the others were better, in my opinion. So in the last part, I'm going to choose the book that I will read for the non-fiction prompt for Jane Austen July. First of all, it was obvious that I would not choose Jane Austen Game Theorist. I'm not really sure if I will ever read the book. The Genius of Jane Austen was interesting, but not as interesting as Jane Austen Diet or Jane Austen at Home. And I was really torn between Jane Austen at Home and Jane Austen Diet. And maybe I will read both. But for the purpose of this vlog, I think I will certainly read Jane Austen at Home. And if I have time, I will read Jane Austen Diet. So the winner is Jane Austen at Home. So those were the 4 books that I tried for the prompt of reading a non-fiction book about Jane Austen. Please comment down below, have you read any of the books that are mentioned in this reading vlog? And if you're a new viewer, first of all, welcome. Please like and subscribe. Hope to see you very soon. Bye. As for Turkish Word of the Day, since one of the 2 books that I liked the most was all about Jane Austen, diet, food and health, I thought food can be the word of the day. Food means yemek in Turkish, and yemek is our Turkish word of the day. Have a good day.